Now, let us begin our class with Brahmanad. Om. Om. Shanti. 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 Swastha. Good morning, children. In our today's class, we will go through a poem. And the poem is The Inchcape Rock, Unit 1. And this poem is written by Robert Southey. He was born in 1774 and passed away in 1843. Robert Southey is also known as the English Romantic poet. He was a poet laureate for 30 years, that is, from 1813 to 1843. He is a prolific letter writer, literary scholar, essay writer, historian, as well as a biographer. Now, a question may arise in your mind: why this poem is titled as The Inchcape Rock? And what is Inchcape Rock, or what do you mean by the Inchcape Rock? The Inchcape Rock is a perilous reef of the east coast of Scotland near the river of Tay. Here, reef means a line of rocks above the sea water. Here, only a few inches of the rock was visible to the mariners when the sea was calm and quiet, or when there was no storm or tempest. Only a few inches of the rock was available to the sailors. And when the sea became rough, or when there was a tempest you know, sea storm, or when there is a storm in the sea, we call it tempest. So when there is a tempest, or when the sea is rough, the rock was completely submerged by sea water. It was not visible at all to the mariners. As a result, the sailors, while sailing their ships towards the shore of Scotland, met with accidents. Many of the sailors lost their lives and property due to the collision against the rock. Now, let us go through the poem. No stir in the air, no stir in the sea. The ship was still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed over the Inchcape Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell, they did not move the Inchcape bell. The abbot of the Abbot had placed that well on the Inchcape rock. On the buoy in the storm it floated and swung, and over the waves its warning rang. When the rock was hit by the surge's swell, the mariners heard the warning well, and then they knew the perilous rock, and blessed the abbot of Abbot. Here in this poem, we will find two characters. One is a protagonist, another one is an antagonist. And here, who is the protagonist? Here the protagonist is the abbot of Abbot. And who is the antagonist? Here the antagonist is Sir Ralph the Rover. Here we will find two characters. And who are the two characters? They are the abbot of Abbot, and the second character is Sir Ralph the Rover. Sir Ralph the Rover was a wicked man. He was the antagonist. He wanted to bring some harm to the humanity. So, here he is known as the antagonist. But Abbot of Abbot was the protagonist because he wanted to save the life and property of the people. Clear? So, what have you understood? Here the poet has taken two characters. They are the abbot of Abbot and Sir Ralph the Rover. Abbot of Abbot were the protagonist, and Sir Ralph the Rover was the antagonist. And here the poet throws the light of the proverb, as you sow, so shall you reap. If we do good to the society, we will enjoy our life and we will be honored, we will be respected by the people of the society. People will like us. And if we try to do some harm to the society, we will not be liked by people. If we do noble deeds, definitely we will be liked by the people of our own society. Sir Ralph the Rover was not liked because he wanted to do some harm to the people. But people liked Abbot of Abbot because he was a noble man and he wanted to do something good for them. Here in this poem, the wicked man, that antagonist, Sir Ralph the Rover. Sir Ralph the Rover. Sir Ralph the Rover. Clear? Was a pirate. His aim was to loot the property from the ships in the sea. So what did he do? He started or set out his sail on a fine day. The atmosphere was calm and quiet when Sir Ralph the Rover set out on a voyage. Voyage, you know, journey made by sea. But he did not have any particular place to go. Actual intention of Sir Ralph the Rover was to attack the ships of others in the sea, and loot their property. No steer in the air, no steer in the sea. Here steer means movement. When Sir Ralph the Rover set out on a voyage, he did not find any problem while sailing his ship in the sea, as there was no movement in the air. There was no movement in the sea. The sea was calm. And cool breeze was blowing. The mariners could see a few inches of the rock just above the sea water. No steer in the air, no steer in the sea. The ship was still as she could be. It seemed from a distance as if the ship was still. No, it was not still, it was moving. It was moving forward and forward. The sailors were sailing the ship without facing any difficulties. The ship was still as she could be. Here, ship is in feminine gender. That is the reason why here she is used. The ship was still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion. Here received no motion means got no wind. Her sails, the sails of the ship from sky, from heaven, got no wind, received no motion. That means there was no storm, heavy wind was not blowing, and the sailors could sail their ship smoothly without facing any problem. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Here keel means the bottom part of the ship was steady. Here steady means constant in the ocean. And the bottom part of the ship was constant in the ocean. That means constantly the ship was going or moving forward and forward. And the sailors did not face any problem while sailing the ship. Clear? Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed over the Inchcape rock. There was the Inchcape rock. And where was the Inchcape rock? The Inchcape rock was off the east coast of Scotland near the mouth of river Tay. The waves flowed over the Inchcape rock. So little they rose, so little they fell. They did not move the Inchcape bell. Without either sign or sound of their shock. Here shock means accident. S-H-O-C-K. Shock means accident. As the weather was fine, cold breeze was blowing, the ship could be sailed smoothly by the sailors. And there was no sign of any accident because the Inchcape rock was visible. The perilous Inchcape rock was visible. They could avoid that rock while sailing in the ocean. Without either sign or either sound of their shock, the waves of the sea flowed over the Inchcape rock. Flowed in the past tense of flowed. And the waves flowed over the Inchcape rock. So, here they means the waves. Rose. Rose in the past tense of rise. Rise, rose, risen. So little they rose and little they fell, but they could not do any harm to the Inchcape bell. They did not move the Inchcape bell. They flowed. The waves of the sea flowed over the Inchcape rock. They rose, they fell, but they could not move the Inchcape bell. An Inchcape bell was tied to the Inchcape rock. So, in the tempest or when the sea was rough, the bell could ring and warn the mariners to avoid their sail towards the Inchcape rock. So the Inchcape bell saved the lives of the mariners, the lives of the sailors when the sea was rough or when there was the tempest. The Inchcape bell saved the lives of the mariners. So what have you understood? Without either sign or sound of their shock, they could sail their ship freely without any problem. The waves of the sea flowed over the Inchcape rock. So little the waves of the sea rose, and so little the waves of the sea fell, but they did not do any harm to the Inchcape bell. They did not move the Inchcape bell. Now the question arises, who tied the Inchcape bell to the Inchcape rock? It was the abbot of Rabindra. Here abbot means head of a monastery. The head of a monastery is called abbot. And do you know what is the feminine gender of abbot? The feminine gender of abbot is abbess. Abbess. The abbot of Rabindra, it was the abbot of Rabindra, as I said to you, abbot of Rabindra was the protagonist. As he wanted to save the life of the mariners, what did he do? He tied. And what did he tie? A bell to the rock so that it would ring or it would produce a warning sound during the storm or when the sea was rough, to warn the sailors to avoid their sail towards the rock. But they could reach to the shore of the Scotland without meeting any accident. So the abbot of Rabindra had placed that bell on the Inchcape rock. Here the answer is also written, who had placed that bell, that Inchcape bell on the Inchcape rock. It was the Rabindra, the abbot of Rabindra, who had placed that bell, that Inchcape bell on the Inchcape rock. In fact, it was kept on a buoy. And what does buoy means? B-U-O-Y. It is a floating object. It is a floating object on the sea to mark a dangerous place. B-U-O-Y. What does buoy mean? Buoy means a floating object on the sea to mark a dangerous place. So it was kept. The bell was kept. The bell was placed on a buoy. In the storm, it floated and swung and in the storm. And when there was storm in the sea, it floated. That boy floated. It was a floating object. It did not sink. So what did it do? It floated. It floated in the storm and swung. Swung is the past tense of swing. Swing. Swung. As it swung, it made the bell produce a sound. As the bell produced the sound, it warned the sailors not to sail their ships towards the rock, towards that Inchcape rock. And over the waves, it's warning wrong. It's warning. That means the warning of the bell. Wrong. Ring, rang, wrong. The past participle form of ring is wrong. So it was placed on a floating object, and in the storm it floated and swung, and over the waves it's warning wrong. So it warned, the bell warned to the mariners, to the sailors, to the navigators, not to sail their ships through that way. When the rock was hidden. Actually, it should be hidden. Hidden. After auxiliary, the verb that should come must be V3. That is past participle form. Hide, hid, hidden. When the rock, when that perilous means dangerous. Peril means danger. And why was that rock called perilous? It was called perilous because many ships collided against that rock during the storm or when the sea was rough, and they met with their end. That means most of the sailors died in that accident. So, when the rock was hidden by the surges spell, here surges spell means rise of the tidal waves. When the rock was hidden by the rise of the tidal waves, the mariners heard in the past tense of hear. What did they hear? They heard the warning well. And when that rock, that Inchcape rock, was hidden by the surges spell, the bell produced the ringing sound, and it warned the sailors and saved their lives. The mariners, the sailors, or the navigators heard the warning well, and they knew the perilous rock. And when they heard that warning well of that bell that was placed on a boy and produced a sound during the storm or when the sea was rough, it saved the lives of the mariners. And then they knew the perilous rock and blessed the abode of Brothel. Here blessed means praised. Not blessings, but blessed means praise. And what did they do? They praised. Here they means the mariners. Whom did they bless or whom did they praise? They praised the abode of Brothel. And why did they praise the abode of Brothel? Because it was he who placed a bell on a boy that produced a warning sound and warned the sailors not to sail their ships through that rock in order to avoid the accident. As a result, their lives were saved, and the work of abode of Brothel saved the lives of the mariners during the storm or when the sea was rough. That was the reason why the mariners praised or appreciated the work of Ebor Brothak or abbot of Ebor Brothak. Before concluding the first unit of the poem, The Inchcape Rock, may I ask you a few questions. Who was Sir Ralph the Rover? Sir Ralph the Rover was a wicked person, as he wanted to bring some harm to the humanity. He was the antagonist. Where did he set out? One day he set out on a voyage. One day. And how was the weather when he set out on his voyage? When he set out on his voyage, the weather was very fine. Did the mariners face any problem when Sir Ralph the Rover set out on his voyage? When Sir Ralph the Rover set out on his voyage, the weather was fine and the mariners did not face any problem while sailing their ship. My next question is, where was the rock? The rock was of the east coast of Scotland near the mouth of River Tay. Who was abbot of Ebor Brothak, or what did he do? Ebor Brothak was the abbot, was a head of a monastery. What did he do? He placed a bell on a buoy, on a floating object, which produced a warning sound to alert the sailors to avoid the accidents. Now, my last question. When was the rock completely hidden? The rock or the Inchcape rock was completely hidden when there was a storm in the sea, or when the sea was rough. The rock was completely hidden. But the bell that was placed on a buoy gave a warning sound to save the lives of the mariners. That was the reason why the mariners appreciated or praised the work of the abbot of Ebor Brothak. In our next class, we will go through the second unit of the poem, The Inchcape Rock.